Well, hello everyone. I have finally gotten around to putting together a little series about shadow work. It's going to go in a lot more detail than some of the other videos that I have done in the past on shadow work, because clearly I've learned more. And so as I learn more, I share more. I believe this is going to be in 3 parts. It is critical that you watch this in order because it does build on information. And if you watch part 2 and you don't watch part 1 first, there are things I'm going to talk about that you're not going to understand, okay? So it's very important. But okay, let's start with this. What are we going to cover in this discussion about shadow work? Well, it's like this. We are going to talk about why you even need to do it, okay? We are going to define what a shadow self is, okay, and why you have to do shadow work, okay, and what's a shadow relationship? Yes, there is such a thing. How does it affect you if it's not taken care of, okay? How does the shadow even come to exist? Ways to do shadow work, what to expect when you're doing shadow work, how it feels. And again, it is very important that you watch this in order. With that being said, let's get started with the official part 1. So the first question is, why do I even need to do it? Well, here's why. Okay, it is literally the primary way to take back control of your own life. Point blank, period. You take control of your behaviors, you take control of your experiences, and you take control of your well-being, spiritually and emotionally and otherwise, okay? It is healing, okay? The thing that I want to stress about shadow work is this. It is important, as we go through this, we will talk in more detail. It is important to feel the feels. But this is not about victim mentality, okay, or wallowing in self-pity. So if you want to stay in victim mode and stay stuck, you might not, this might not resonate. But you might want to hear me out because you're probably here for a reason, okay? So, you know, it's going to lead you to much, much more peaceful, harmonious relationships and get you off of the hamster wheel of failed relationships. And we're not just talking romance. Of course, that's, you know, a lot of it. But it has to do with you know, relationship failures with friends, you know, continuing drama within your family, and so on and so forth. Yes, working on you will improve others' behaviors. Watch. Okay, I am walking, talking proof, okay? Shadow work is all about self-acceptance, okay? The entire self, okay? It is taking responsibility and taking back your power, okay? Right? You know, when you're operating and you're really not doing shadow work or haven't done your shadow work, you're pretty much allowing other people to have control of your life. They're in the driver's seat of your car, okay? We'll go into detail and explain why, but it does raise your vibration as far as working law of attraction. And so therefore, you know, because it's going to change your beliefs, because the beliefs associated with the shadow, which we will define in a little bit, that is the hand that rocks the cradle in working law of attraction. So yet another very, very important reason to do shadow work and why you may be having trouble manifesting right now, okay? So, again, I am covering every aspect of this in its entirety. And there are things I'm going to have to talk about that may offend some sensibilities. And let me just go into that for just a second, okay? Here's the thing. Many of you watch me read tarot. Okay? Tarot is divination. Divination is witchcraft. Anybody that tells you that they are not casting every time they do a tarot read, either they're not clued into what they're doing, which is kind of scary because you really don't want to mess with the supernatural or the craft if you at least don't acknowledge that that's what you're doing, or they're just not being honest, okay? It is a type of casting. Every single tarot reading that you watch, you are watching spellcasting, okay? I'm just going to call it like it is. Now, back to how the craft comes into play in shadow work. I'm just going to lay this out here. I would do you a disservice if I did not cover everything that I know about shadow work. And one of the most important areas is going to involve parts of the craft. And I'm not here to teach the craft. That's not my focus here. That is not where my passion lies currently. Okay, but I will at that time cover it. So understand. Let's just be honest here. I don't know what your spirituality is, and I'm okay with whatever that is. I don't judge. I don't care if you worship the flying spaghetti monster, okay? But as long as you don't hurt other people, okay? But here's the thing. If you pray and you have belief and faith and intent, okay, to me, that's the same thing as a spell. Just going to call it like it is. Okay, so now, not doing shadow work opens you up to negative energies around you. As you know, many tarot readers, myself included, I don't always do this on the video to keep the video short, but I smudge, I burn sage, okay? And I do that to get rid of negative energy, which is also the same thing as entities, okay? And when you're walking around and you've got this shadow that is unaddressed, okay, you are begging to have this stuff attached to you. And sometimes it's called a parasite, which is a type of entity, okay? And parasites will really cause you some major problems. And we'll talk about that in more detail. But I wanted to cover that in part 1 because I want to make it very clear. I'm speaking my truth. I'm not worried about, being popular. As you know, you've heard me say this. I'm more interested in telling the truth than I am in being popular. If you want help, I'm trying to help you and I'm giving you some tools. It's up to you whether you decide you want to just at least hear me out. Okay, so with that being said, as I said, I debated a lot about it, okay? But at the end of the day, I felt like I had to, to throw that out, okay? But if you don't work through this stuff, it's going to leave you in where you are toxic, okay? That's not up for debate. It is. If you do not do shadow work, it's going to you're going to have self-esteem problems. You're going to have relationship issues, in every relationship, job, family, daughter, father, mother, sister, brother, cousin, aunt, uncle, friend, and certainly in romance, okay? So whatever. And especially, though, with yourself, okay? Now, let's define the shadow. Okay, what is your shadow? Well, everything that I'm going to talk about has to do with the mental health pioneer named Carl Jung, Jung, okay? And he was a pioneer in this area. Of course, many others too. But at any rate, according to him, the shadow is this. It is the unconscious or subconscious, okay? By definition, those things we are not even aware of. But ironically, they are the things that matter the most in how we live our everyday lives and how we're affected by things. Hear me out. It is things we are unaware of, things that the conscious, what we're aware of, does not identify as a part of itself. It has rejected it, okay? It's the unknown, and it's the part where we kind of store the unacceptable things about ourselves that we're kind of in denial of even existing, okay? It's painful memories many times and the way we feel about them, but hear me out. I'm going to get to that. Okay. According to Jung, everyone carries a shadow, and the less it is embodied into the person's conscious awareness, the blacker and denser and more toxic it becomes. Boom. Okay? Shadow behavior. It is often an automatic, unintentional, and unconscious response to events, people, and situations. You can be overly defensive, manipulative, aggressive, overreacting, lose your temper, road rage, impatience, lack of compassion, overbearing, territorial, moody, emotionally numb, emotionally unavailable, resistant to change, easily triggered, self-sabotage, self-esteem, ruined relationships, destructive behavior, abuse, either recipient of and or giver of, okay? Projecting, in other words, judgmental, because The things you hate about other people, you don't realize it, but that's your subconscious opinion of yourself. We'll get more to that later. Loneliness, fear of being alone, fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, self-loathing, overly critical of yourself or others, perfectionism, egotistical, addiction, okay, not just addiction to substance abuse, but to people too, controlling, and arrogant, okay? That's just some of the ways that, you know, things can, you know, the shadow can peek out and say, hey, okay, I need to get your attention. You need to work on me, right? But okay, there is a thing called a shadow relationship. It happens when your connection to a person is out of your wounds and unhealed parts of yourself instead of from your heart and soul center. Okay, this is why I often talk about being addicted to people. Okay, it's almost the same thing as trauma bonding, but not necessarily the same. But it will result in repeating patterns, emotional blocks, where toxicity, abuse, addiction is confused with love. Okay, or tolerating those things. Okay, that is not love. That is a doormat. That is not what we are called to be. Okay. Projection, again, the things you hate in others is what you actually believe about yourself. And you're going to learn that if you go with me down this journey, okay? Young, he said, until you make the unconscious conscious, in other words, until you go inside that shadow and become aware of what's there, it will direct your life. Let me just say that again. Until you make the shadow something that you're aware of, all the aspects, it is going to direct every area of your life. Boom. So, yeah. So, you really want to take control of this thing. There's a lot of incentive to do it, right? So, the shadow consists of things that you will find difficult to accept about yourself, sometimes disturbing, sometimes even frightening, okay? It is the fragmented parts of you. Repressed ideas, instincts, impulses, weaknesses, desires, perversions, and embarrassing fears many times are some of the things that you might find. Certainly pains, heartaches, heartbreaks, guilt, okay, associated with things we've done to hurt others, because that's certainly unacceptable, right? You know, in our world, right? So, how does the shadow self come to even exist? Okay, hear me out. We are born with a blank canvas, but as we develop, we come to believe certain things are good or evil. You know, certain things are acceptable versus unacceptable, right? The things in us that we view as evil or unacceptable, we compartmentalize, okay? And they become fragmented. And imagine if you kind of store them and hide them in a suitcase in the back of your mental closet. This is why we often call this working through your baggage, okay? But instead of working through it, you kind of just store it in the back of the closet and you just kind of hope it'll go away, but it doesn't. It really is just going to get worse and worse until you deal with it, okay? All right. So with that being said, that is kind of an intro to where we're going on this thing, and I hope this part has helped you. I would love to hear any comments, questions, thoughts down below in the description box. Next, we are going to talk about the difference in integration of the shadow in part 2 versus spiritual bypassing, which is very unhealthy, okay? We're going to talk about how shadow work feels, and we're going to talk about, again, some more benefits, okay? And so we'll just go from there, okay? So I hope that if you haven't already done so, you'll subscribe, like this, okay? And hit the thumbs up. And I appreciate all of you so, so much, okay? Talk to you again soon.